The latest Vinland Saga episode has our boy Thorfinn go to hell and come back a different man. To see not only our old pal, who I never thought we would see Aslad quite like this again. Obviously flashbacks, little teases, of course you kind of expect it, but to have an almost entire dreamlike conversation where the man who literally forced our young boy into a mindless killer for so long, by the end of his life, almost became a parental figure to him, and it's such a complex atmosphere. To have that man be the one to encourage him to climb back up, to not give up, and to bring those people that he's wronged, the number of lives of how many people he's killed, to have him come out of that and say, no more violence, I refuse to be that anymore. Our boy literally became a completely new man, and the possibilities for his character going forward are completely endless. Now, I do have a full live reaction to today's wonderful episode available on my Patreon, so if you want to see my full uncut thoughts, head on over there and consider supporting. Every time I think I found a new favorite episode, literally the next week rolls around and there's an even better episode. The one thing I really need to hammer in and compliment is Thorfinn's VA. So there's a couple of moments that really got to me. Initially when he's falling down the cavern there and it feels so raw, it feels so real, like he went deep into the pits of his stomach and was growling like an animal as he's falling to his seemingly death. The amount of time I went back and rewound as I was gathering my screenshots for this episode, it was such an incredible performance, and this is coming off a week of anime where you have Attack on Titan, To Your Eternity, Vinland Saga, so many great anime with killer voice acting, but I gotta admit, that's the performance of the week for me anyway, right there. There's also the pain, the anguish that comes from just some of the more subtle, softer moments, but I gotta admit, Thorfinn's VA is one talented individual, and really, I think the VA is the star of this episode in my opinion. Not to discredit visual directing or anything, but that's the thing that really sold me on the pain of this. I think it's so interesting because we know for Thorfinn, he wakes up from nightmares almost every day, if not daily, right? So to start the episode with him in a field and just have the animal jumping on his chest, and it feels like, oh, he's thinking that the story that we've been following was the nightmare, and this is his nice, peaceful reality. No one's buying into this actually being all a dream and the author pulling a big plot twist from thin air. No. I mean, it's kind of funny to think about. Imagining if the author actually did write it in a way where the entirety of season 1 and most of season 2 was a dream, what they would do with that. I mean, I think it would have rattled quite a few manga feathers and anime feathers alike, but it's fun to think about. But I like what they did because seeing his father and seeing something that it goes from a peaceful, kind of like, oh, he's finally having a nice dream for once. He got knocked on his ass, he's finally having something peaceful for once. Switches into demonic, but then it goes right back into hopeful by the end. The number of bait and switches they did with him mostly passed out this episode, to have him come out of that saying no more, I think it's so brilliant. I think it was around the midway point of season 1 when I started hearing about Vinland Saga and people saying, oh, a lot of people drop it, this, that, and the third. But honestly, minus a few monkey brain comments that I've seen over the weeks, I really have seen most people complimenting this season just as much as the previous season. Now, the idea of Thorfinn guaranteed swearing off violence forever, maybe that will rattle more feathers than not, but I think when you look at where he started out as a kid, the horrible life he's lived, the fact that he just wants to be good for once and change his life for the better, I completely respect that. Most of the times when an author or a story writes a character like this, you write it so the warrior is the character you're following, and we did that for most of season 1. But to have him become a completely different character, the possibilities really are endless. Thorfinn gets eventually wrapped up in more political drama, whether as an advisor to King Canute or a king of some sort, or he is just a normal, peaceful bystander for the rest of the show. There is potential for a character who used to be so filled with violence and hate, refusing to pick up a sword, refusing to hit even the people he wants to. While yes, maybe some people say they don't like those characters written in that way, to start season 1 with where we did to where we currently are now by episode 9 of season 2, to me, this makes that type of character so much more compelling than what you normally start out a show where the character's already in that mindset. To see the hell that Thorfinn has went through, I completely am rooting for him, and even though I think it's different, the person he punched was a scumbag, at the end of the day, I understand a man who's lived a life full of so much violence doesn't even want to do that anymore. The biggest shocker, though, has to be that they got away clean. I mean, I said it last week that the only way I could see this potentially working out is that the former slave who's working for the master finds a way, finds some evidence to stop the BS. And exactly that happened. They literally said that a boar attack happened, so that's how they're going to explain their injuries, and that's the story they're going to stick with. Even though it might ostracize our boy and potentially put a target on his head with the people he works at, I mean, he came in clutch, and to see our boys back at it with the farm, I mean, to see a kid who used to always have a sword and vengeance in his eyes, have a hoe, picking that up and just farming and seeing a peaceful future, it brings a grin to your face and says, man, if anyone deserves a second chance at life, it's gotta be him. He doesn't have clean hands, the show's not trying to say he has clean hands, but circumstances definitely paint what happened to a boy to turn him into that, and circumstances once again are showing us what he can become now in the future. And if that isn't 10 out of 10 writing, I mean, seriously, what the hell's 10 out of 10 writing to you, right? But I mean, the entire hell sequence was beautiful. The sound effects when his fingernails snapped, I thought it was just the one, but when you see his hands and his entire hands are just ripped almost to the cuticle, like, that is messed up. Like, the sound effects, the voice acting, the visual directing, it was so good. And all I can say is after watching this episode in particular, if this team that's currently making Vinland Saga ever wanted to do a zombie anime, they know they have the chops, they know what they're doing, because this was a pure zombie horror anime location, all things considered. Seeing Bjorn and everything like that, it was just so good. And to see someone who, seriously, like, when we look at what Thorfinn wanted to do to Askeladd throughout the entirety of season 1, to see him be that voice of reason, to jump down and fight for him so he didn't have to be dragged down or kicked, like, take those people, just to have that conversation and to have someone say, don't run away from it. Don't hide from what you've done. Take their pain. Take what you took from them. Bring them up with you and climb out. And for once, he climbed out. The last time we saw this location of him trying to climb, he fell right back down. But by carrying that weight with him, he actually found a way to wake up for once. Thorfinn has not had an easy life. He's had a very questionable parental figures over the course of his journey, but to have someone like Einar, who's really a big brother and honestly a brotherly figure to him at this point, it really is night and day, and it'll be very interesting to see where the future of the season goes. It's not going to stay hopeful forever. It's not going to stay like, oh, they made it out okay this time, so all's well that ends well. No, things will get worse, obviously, before they get better, and when we do get these moments where it feels like it got better, it feels rewarding for all the pain and suffering that happened before. And the fact that Vinland Saga continues to reshape its foundation is really respectable in my opinion. My favorite shows this season are like To Your Eternity and Vinland Saga, right? And both of those have a manga author that reshaped the seasons and the arcs to be almost a completely different type of story. And the fact that they can make that completely different type of story just as great as the previous content, there's not many that have kind of writing chops to do it. And the fact that we have both of those shows airing at back-to-back Sunday to Monday, I mean, seriously, we anime fans are eating good this season. But enough rambling from me. What did you think of this episode? Do you agree with me? Best episode so far? And if not, what was your favorite episode so far this season? Do let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Be sure to ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload on the channel. And of course, as I mentioned, I do have that full live reaction available on my Patreon. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.